Today on Rise Up, we highlight some moving and inspiring community posts shared on the Riser's official YouTube channel. Next, the Riser dives into the ancient mystery of angels and demons across the Abrahamic faiths and beyond. With vivid scriptural insights, Gnostic traditions, and esoteric secrets, this episode reveals a hidden universe teeming with beings both luminous and dark. And finally, we head to the comments section, where we engage with your thoughts and responses to our lecture series, The School of Divine Mysteries. This is Rise Up.
Welcome to Rise Up. I'm Alia Halal.
Well, very good morning. Welcome to Rise Up. Irfan Alamgir.
And here is another episode of Rise Up for everyone to watch and learn
We're
from.
back. We're here to serve the people. That's why God put us in this place, and we're very grateful to be here. And we want you to be here as well, because the world's a dark place. Things are, as we always say, it's not all doom and gloom, but it is really, other than being with the Spirit of God. And when you're with the Spirit of God, there is peace and light, and this is the religion of peace and light. It is the religion of the seventh covenant. Covenants are very, very important. These divine contracts that God makes for the benefit of mankind. Essentially, God says what? He says, sign on this dotted line, and your life will be easy, and you will flourish, and you will transform from a caterpillar into a butterfly if you trust me. God is free of all needs. He doesn't need us, but we need him. And in signing this document, there is basically a very simple stipulation, which states that God will interact with mankind through a person that he chose, as simple as that. And if we obey this person, we are obeying God. And if we obey God, we will have salvation, we will have success, we will have that feeling where we wake up with energy, we wake up with passion, we wake up with that sense of purpose, that we are moving in the right direction. How many people can say their lives are going in the right direction? How many people are truly satisfied and at peace and successful? I think the only people who can claim that, because we know about all these stories, multi-millionaires, billionaires being addicted to various substances, being extremely depressed, committing suicide. So it's not just about material success. Success has many dimensions to it. And in this call, you will find everything that you need. You will have success in your professional life, you will have success in your relationships, and you will have success, most importantly, in that relationship with God, that eternal bond that comes when you know God. And the way you know God is by knowing the person that he chose to inspire into them the Holy Spirit. The Spirit that was breathed into Adam, the Spirit that commands obedience. This is what we need, and I think people are beginning to wake up to our message, which is essentially the same but packaged in different ways, and lots of interesting and varied segments by the various people who are based here at our headquarters in the UK. And no matter what comes our way, we will always cling to our truth, and sorry about that, we will get this ship going very soon. You have to climb aboard the Ark of Salvation. Time is ticking, and time is of the essence.
Time is of the essence, and time is another metaphor for the Imam. And there's actually a mention in the Holy Quran where it says, by time. Time is something that God swears by. The hour is mentioned in the Holy Quran as well in various verses, and the hour is another metaphor that we find in the narrations that is described as being the Imam of the time. So it's a very interesting time that we're living in, and the Imam is also amongst us, and he's very present, he's very apparent. And that's exactly what the Quran mentions as being, again, the Holy Quran. The Quran is the Imam al-Mubin. So it all comes back full circle to the Imam of the time. There's no way to get around this individual. And people sometimes try to get around the fact that there has to be an Imam. They sometimes think that to themselves that as long as they're good people, as long as they pray, as long as they follow these rituals, they don't really need an Imam. And unfortunately for them, they really do still need an Imam, because an Imam is not just someone who tells you how to pray or how to perform the ablution or how to do something of that nature. The Imam is not just a rule book.
Yep.
He's also a king. He's also a governor. He's also someone he's also a judge. He's also someone who makes decisions for his people. He's a shepherd. So the Imam is actually someone without whom the society cannot run or function. It's like having a beehive without the queen bee. It doesn't work. That will no longer be a beehive. And that's exactly what the purpose of the Imam is. It's to put the people together, right, in the society. And this is the thing. This was the disease of Satan himself when he said, I don't need Adam. I have God, and God has me, and Adam isn't needed. And God said, no, actually, I can't accept you without you complying with the fact that I have sent Adam for you as a caliph. And maybe people find that offensive, maybe, and they do actually, they tell us this. They say, this is shirk. They say it's almost like you're making us worship a man. But we tell them, we're not doing that. We're just saying exactly what the narrations say, which is that there has to be a man that we follow, that we heed. There has to be a focal point that everyone agrees on. And it has to be a focal point that can speak back. It can't be a rock or a stone. It can't be a book. It has to be an individual. So it's not even just scriptural evidence, is it? It's just logic. It's just reasoning.
Yeah, and there's a very interesting esoteric Buddhist saying, which I like. It says that the teacher, the bodhisattva, he says that I am a finger pointing to the moon. Don't worship the finger, but focus on what it is pointing to, which is the moon.
There you go.
And this is where the Caliph of God comes in. He's the person that has that light that emanates from him, and it is that light behind the veil of the man, or the mask that God wears in every time that we worship, that light that is coming from God through this messenger of his choosing. So the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his family was certainly that in his time in Arabia, where he emerged and he put an end to the social injustices that were happening at the time. And it is the same in this era. Abu Sadiq has come forward claiming the same, by the same methodology, his divine right to rule, which is what? Which is the will of the Prophet Muhammad, which is the written will that God uses as a mechanism whereby people who are looking for him can identify him. It is that phone number, that phone line that goes straight to God. And without it, we cannot really have a connection with God. This is difficult for some people to grasp, or they don't like it because they don't like the idea, Ali, of having an intermediary.
Yeah. Definitely.
This is something that people are not very comfortable with, and this is something that we are here to explain, that it is the only way by which God chooses to be worshipped. He will not accept worship in any other way, which is why he said, no, Iblis or Satan, you must prostrate to Adam, you must accept him as your hujjah, the intermediary between God and man, or God and creation, and only then will you be accepted. You must make that prostration, and we all know the story. Iblis couldn't do it. He could not prostrate, and all who followed him and rejected this divinely selected intermediary went astray. They went off that straight path, the Sirat al-Mustaqim.
Yeah, it's a fascinating concept, and I have to say that before this covenant was brought to our attention, before this religion was made evident to us, we didn't know this. I personally, as a Muslim, never knew the significance of that event that takes place, and it's mentioned in the Holy Quran. It's also mentioned in apocryphal texts in Judeo-Christian scripture. But the fact is that this incident where Satan or Iblis or Azazel refuses to prostrate to Adam, and then God says, be expelled now from paradise because of your impudence, because you defied me. So in defying Adam, Satan defies God.
Yeah.
And when I knew this story, I never really put it together as the entirety of religion encompassed in a story. Because here you have all the characters you need for the story to make sense. You've got the main character, who's Adam, who has to be seen as the Imam, as the Caliph. You've got the villain who refuses to accept him. And you have God, who is the goal. He's the end of the hero's journey that you have to get to. And if you don't know the story and you don't understand it the way that Abu Sadiq has explained it, then religion becomes confusing, because it becomes about everything that Satan wants it to be. He has no problem with you praying. He has no problem with you dressing modestly. He has no problem with you adhering to a particular dietary law. But he does have a problem with you knowing and recognizing the Imam of the time and supporting him. That's where he has a problem. Everything else is fine with him. He's very happy. He'll help you build your masjids. You know, he'll be there in church with you.
Yeah.
He doesn't have an issue with that.
He'll be the supreme bricklayer in that project.
Yeah,
and,
he'll lead the project.
The lead builder. He will be. And I think that title you used is very telling as well. Azazil in Arabic, or the Aziz of Allah, which means the near beloved of God. And that is a very prestigious title. And it is something that's also well known in the Western occult tradition, where they call him Azazel.
Yeah.
And he is one of those angels who fell from grace. It is that archetypal story of falling from grace, in fact, where somebody who had accomplished through worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala very, very high rank. He had a lot of knowledge, but he did not put into practice what he knew. And when put to the test, when there became a veil or a barrier between God and Azazil, he couldn't tolerate that. And it was a very difficult test for him because of the connection that he had with that particular veil in the apparent. And it was the test of tests, and it is the perennial test. It never changes. It's always there for us to pass and get over this hurdle, which is that God chooses a man at a time to talk to mankind. And this is where Abba Sadiq comes in. He is that veil in our time that so few have recognized and sworn allegiance to and are obedient to. Now, we're very fortunate and blessed to be here because we were able to identify this phenomenon that exists in the apocryphal Judeo-Christian scriptures, like you said, Alia, but also prominently features as a centerpiece in the Quran before the beginning of the story of Adam and Eve and mankind on earth, on Eden. We have to wake up. We have to realize that our spiritual lives are null and void. They have no significance, no importance until and unless we can make peace with the fact that God is worshipped through a man.
Yeah.
That religion is a man that veils the Spirit of God, which is the goal of the wise. Once we reach him, once we make him our Qibla, then everything else will fall into place. Our lives will be complete. We will reach completion and we will be awakened. So if you're somebody watching this right now and you want enlightenment, you want peace, you want success, you want all the things that we would define as success, then this is the place that you will find it. And because we have managed to find it, we want to share with our audience, with everybody who is interested in God and religion, to recognize that light that we have seen and to come to him and to help him to build that divine just state. Iblis is going to help you build your masjids, telling you that you're going to build, palaces with this for yourself in paradise, but he will never tell you to lay one single brick that serves in the building of the divine just state under the Caliph of God.
Exactly.
Because that one brick is the signaling of the end of the reign of the tyrants and the non-working scholars and the king that they worship, which is Satan himself, the devil. And this is something that we are, of course, rising up against, and we are telling the people to immediately come and recognize the Spirit of God that exists in their time.
Yes, release all bricks.
Yes.
And walk this way.
Exactly, walk this way.
And rise up with us. And we're rising up against the forces of darkness. And that sounds like a very vague term. But what that really means is we're rising up against intolerance, against oppression, against persecution. We're people that believe in standing up for the rights of all human beings, whatever they may believe in. It really doesn't matter to us because at the end of the day, they are human beings. If you are someone who aligns with that kind of understanding and thinks that you could be part of this as well, then the good news is you can be part of this, and you absolutely are meant to be part of this. As the scriptures say, there is a seat for you at the banquet table. So reach out to us and we'll be very happy to explain to you how that works. And you can also call in on the show right now. The number is on the screen and we would be very happy to take your phone call. Now, speaking of those who are supporting us, we do have many believers that we acknowledge here on the show on a regular basis in our community post segment, where we spin the globe and we end up on different countries. Shall we do that?
Yep, let's get the globe spin. Where are we going?
Morocco.
Morocco. There we go. Morocco it is, North Africa. So we should be going live to Morocco if we are covering the whole of Africa. If we're not, I think Morocco is one of those countries that's covered by both our satellite channels, actually.
Yeah?
Yeah, because it's the MENA region and it's also the Middle East and North Africa.
Yeah.
And then it would also be Africa, right? If it's us.
It should be, but I think it's too north up.
Oh, it's too north. Morocco missed out. Poor Morocco. But
the good news is our other satellite channel does have an Arabic Rise Up morning show.
Yeah, which makes sense, yes. But the French people are all here, right? On our side of the fence. There you go. So we also win. Now, there is well, that's a very stunning poster.
It's a beautiful poster.
Yeah.
And they're putting it in the different mailboxes as well. That's nice.
Yes.
That is good.
I mean, there are so many people who are struggling every day, struggling to make ends meet, struggling to stay afloat. And if they see something like this, then the Mahdi idea is very much there in Morocco, because we have a lot of Ansar who are from Morocco here in the Dawah on the ground, actually. So
we do.
There must be something in also Morocco where, and Morocco, of course, is seen of a lot of injustice against the followers of our religion in the press and also in the human rights circles. We are definitely wanting to spread in Morocco now. New Zealand, this is, puts a smile on my face every time I see something that far away. But
it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
That there's this phenomenon taking place where the world is so close to itself now, like as a global village. It's this closed kind of community that's very,
There's a church, no doubt. Senior pastor Phil Coates, shout out.
Shout out to Senior.
Shout out to you, sir.
Whoever you are, Phil.
Yes, but
you're invited to the banquet table as well.
We invite one and all. That's interesting.
That is very cool. I love how it just kind of fits in with all the other posters. You'd think it's just been put there by the church.
Yeah, but you know what we could do, and this is just feedback. I think the job you're doing is amazing. You see the way that they've written the fonts and the one below? We need to make the font more prominent, I reckon.
Absolutely true.
Keep that QR code, make it bigger, and then make the writing even bigger.
It needs to be bigger.
Because that is a very strong, powerful message from the beginning of the Mahdi's manifesto. And you know that Abba Sadiq has come for the weak, the orphan, the needy. And this is something we need to emphasize. So keep that font bold, let it shine wherever you put the poster.
Yeah, that's totally true. We actually need to make new designs. There's some new designs. God already chose a leader.
Beautiful. That's what I'm talking about now. That's it. Wow, that's called responding to feedback.
That's called manifestation.
That's called manifesting the Mahdi's manifesto. Yes, very much so. That's beautiful. And that's what we're talking about. In the Commonwealth of Australia, brilliant, amazing.
Down under.
Down under, yeah, and they're very beautiful posters, both of them.
I think it's so amazing. I mean, if anything, this religion has really proven how the world is so connected, and it's such a time. It's the perfect time for the Mahdi to appear. Imam al-Mahdi had been waiting for a point in time where the world would be ready, right? And there are all these resources now. There's the internet, the social media, there are smartphones, and the people are connected to one another, and English is widespread as a unifying language. It looks like it is the perfect time for the Mahdi to appear. If you were back 1200 years ago watching the 12th Imam and he says, look, I have to go into an occultation now, and you'd be wondering when would he come back, you couldn't probably imagine the world to look the way it does now. But if you did, you'd say to yourself, but that's perfect. That's exactly what the Mahdi needs for when he appears. And the Mahdi has appeared, and everything seems to be pretty much kind of set for him, because it's exactly what's needed for us to stand up and rise up in a peaceful spiritual movement that is not violent or aggressive, but it just exists and is known. It's made known to the world. And just knowing about it, and the observer effect, the fact that enough people hear about it, see it, know it, is enough to make it actually manifest and actually work.
Gets the wheels turning. The wheels are turning.
The universe is acknowledging that it exists.
Yep. Our train is gathering momentum as we speak, and all the different coaches are aligning, and it's very interesting to see the feedback that we're getting from the people as well, in the form of comments, especially on Abba Sadiq's YouTube channel, The Mahdi Has Arrived. You see so many comments. Yes, there are a lot of people who are there to mock and to belittle and to, attack, but there are also interspersed within them beautiful little gems of questions that have made this whole Q&A kind of segments with Abba Sadiq, which we really enjoy, that we aired quite a lot in the last few shows. And we want those questions to keep coming in, because this shows that there are people who really are interested in this call, who see this alternative view of doing things, and they want to make themselves heard. And we want to hear from you. We want you to call in to the show, to share your views and opinions, and to get things out there so that we can both have this debate where we can understand what does it mean when on the Mahdi's flag it says that which you have promised has arrived. that which you were promised has arrived, a Christian would say, well, what does that mean? We're waiting for the second coming of Jesus. Well, Abba Sadiq has claimed to be the true Pope.
Yeah.
He has said that he is the successor of Jesus Christ through the spiritual inheritance and lineage that comes from Simon Peter, who was the first Pope recognized by the Catholic Church. And Abba Sadiq is saying that he is the successor of Jesus Christ through that channel, which a lot of people overlook within Christianity. And he is the Maitreya of the Buddhists, he is the Kalki of the Hindus, he is the Mashiach for the Jews. Now, this is an interesting point as well, because we hear a lot of people saying, are you the Messiah? And Abba Sadiq says, no, I'm not the Messiah, I'm the Mahdi. The Messiah was Jesus Christ.
Absolutely.
And this is a very interesting they have a lot of similarities that they share in terms of their function and purpose in creating or helping to build that divine just state. That was the mission of both. But Abba Sadiq is the Mahdi, and he is the spiritual successor of Jesus Christ. So the Christians have been waiting for Jesus' second coming, but actually who Jesus said to wait for was his successor through Simon Peter. And of course, Jesus will also return. He is not absent from this narrative, but the finger that points to the moon is Abba Sadiq. Abba Sadiq is that moon at this time. And the one pointing to him is Jesus Christ. The one pointing to him is Muhammad, the prophet and messenger of God, peace be upon him and his family. And all the prophets and the messengers were pointing to the riser of the family of Muhammad, who has now emerged in our midst. And you can see these beautiful posters that are sharing this good news. They're here to invite you to that divine festival where we celebrate the coming of this great man who is here to once and for all end that structure of injustice, that Sauron's tower, and to build that divine just state. Call in on the numbers. Get involved, engage yourself in conversation, inform yourselves, educate yourselves. These platforms were created by the riser of the family of Muhammad to help the people to arrive and reach the truth. And let's get going. Let's get on the train train of salvation.
Join us here on this amazing train that is going to a very good place and gives your life purpose and gives you purpose and gives you hope. And I think that on the note of the fact that the world is such a global village now, and as you said, Dr. Fan, so many people are responding to the religion, and we're finding more and more people wanting to pledge their allegiance. We're also finding people who are mocking, accusing, trying to persecute in different ways, abusing really verbally, emotionally, spiritually this call, and in some places around the world physically as well. And I think that it's worthy of note that we actually discuss that for a second. Why? Because we as a people, we are mocked, we are harassed very often by various entities and different kinds of people that decide that they have the right to do that. For whatever reason it might be, there are people who are quite racist, for example, who decide that because we don't look like them or sound like them, perhaps we should be oppressed. There are people who don't agree with our religion, our religious ideals. Yeah. They insist that we be homophobic, or they insist that we be more fundamentalist. And we insist that we will refuse to do that. We don't want to be in that category. And because we resist those ideas, and because we stand up against intolerance, we are mocked and harassed for that. But we will not let go of our creed or principles because of fear or because of bullying. Absolutely not. But the point is, it happens.
Yep.
And it's difficult, really. It really is. Sometimes we sit here and we say it happens and we move on. Mm-hmm. But I wonder if the world understands that it's quite an ordeal to face it and to undergo that, to read those words, to hear that kind of narrative. I wonder if people understand the impact they can have, the negative impact that they can have on innocent men and women who haven't done anything wrong.
Yeah. And some of the mocks are actually quite comical, aren't they? When
they are
people
very silly.
They walk by and they say, "You just wait a minute, Jesus is coming for you." They'll say stuff like this to us.
What kind of Jesus Christ are they believing in? Yes. What kind of your Jesus Christ seems to be very strange if that's the narrative that you're using, because in our world Jesus Christ is a wonderful, great man who God sent for helping establish peace rather than walking up to different buildings and attacking the people inside them. I mean, what are you talking about?
Especially people who believe that he is the Messiah.
That's like a terrorist Jesus Christ who's
exactly. Who is this?
That's very odd, very odd. And I think people want to believe in some kind of religious figure in their heads who's on their side and hates everyone else. And that in and of itself is such a red flag that you should automatically know that this religious leader is just Satan wearing the mask of Jesus Christ or wearing the mask of Muhammad and the family of Muhammad, because they would never, ever agree with you and say, yes, I hate those people, let's go hurt them somehow.
I hate them because they're calling for justice and equality. I mean, it doesn't make sense.
I hate them because they are tolerant to LGBTQ community.
I hate them because they give women their rights.
It's so
What's
weird.
going on?
That's not right, guys. Like, I really hope anyone who's out there who does that or thinks that about us is listening to this. It's very, very concerning that be the case. Perhaps some of it's coming from ignorance. Perhaps some of these people who are hating on us don't know who we are. Maybe if you knew who we were, you'd like us a little bit more. So we encourage research. We encourage you to go to our absolutely varying plethora of content that is on the internet that you can easily access at the click of a button. So we really hope you do that before you decide to start abusing and assaulting our members.
Yeah.
And it is happening. And I just want to say that while those people are doing that to us, while there are racists, while there are fundamentalists, while there are people who hate progressive ideas and they hate people being given their rights and are afraid of change and are afraid of positivity, it's also a great honor for us to know that we have such a beautiful, pure truth with us that the dark side has to slander it, has to mock it, has to attack it. It is such a great honor for us to be on the side of someone like Abu Sadiq, who has never once in the past 14, 15 years that we've known him, and some have known him longer, he has never for a single second laid down his principles or his ideals because of fear, because of bullying. He's never once walked away from the enemy. He's always stood there, firm in his stance, never left the battlefield. Unlike some of these, I have to say, these so-called presidents of countries who run away as soon as there are rumors of war, as soon as there's some attack from another country, they'll leave, they'll flee the country, and you'll hear news of so-and-so has fled the country. Away, that can never happen with Abu Sadiq. He has so many times stood up in the face of tyranny and just stood there, completely fearless, because he knows that God is by him and on his side. And there are people that are following the creed of the prophets and messengers who have always been slandered and always been accused of that which they have not done. So we're very happy to be in this position, and we're extremely honored for the privilege that God has given us. And I think that people should know that if they're watching, if they're listening, if they're wondering who we are, if they're thinking of how to attack us next with their words, with their meanness, with their bullying, you should know we're not going to stop believing in what we believe in.
Yes.
Just wanted to say that.
Yeah, no, we have to. We have to remember also that God has God is full of love and mercy and kindness towards his creation, but he is also the God of justice, and the karmic law has to play out. So those people who are fighting and killing God's prophets and messengers and mocking them, they too shall be mocked. And we have to realize this divine law that is in place for the continuation of life in this universe.
Yes.
Otherwise life would not exist, right? So call in. Pick up the phone and call in. Let's have a conversation. Let's discuss matters as they stand, and let's really take this subject very seriously. The subject of the Vicegerent of God is the epitome of the message of all the sacred books, of all the revealed books of religion that the messengers and prophets brought with them when they came to teach us. It is that quintessential condition that never changes. It is something that is always there, where we have to recognize God through a caliph of God, through a representative of God. And I think all those who make this realization have really accomplished the goal of the wise, because once you have this individual in your life, you have God in your life, and nothing can, like the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt said, this is the impenetrable fortress. Those who enter it are secure.
It is like that. Today we're going to be jumping into a really amazing episode that Abu Sadiq, from him his peace, has released on his channel. But before we do that, Dr. Irfan, you weren't here yesterday, and we aired the interview.
Oh,
with
the interview
Professor
with
Hollyfolk.
Hollyfolk.
And I thought that it would be remiss of me to move on to another topic before I actually get your comment on that, because we haven't been able to talk about it yet, and I think we should just at least briefly mention the fact that we did have a professor of religion and a major advisor on religion and culture as well, who came to the community and studied the Ahmadi religion of peace and light, and she was very well, the interview showed it, very impressed with what she saw, and she was very happy with what she saw, and she expressed it very well. She touched on certain aspects of communities that can be a concern to people in general. And she said, this is not an issue here, this is not an issue here. And she really was very, she really simplified what's happening in very beautiful terms. And I really appreciate that from her. I think a lot of times things go over people's heads. And she actually sat there and broke down the fact that, look, when people try to demonize a group, they give it labels. But these labels don't apply to those groups because those groups are not doing the things that they're being blamed for. And it's beautiful that she actually took the time to come over and do what she did. And we really liked that she did that, right? Yeah,
the way she talked was absolutely brilliant. Like a person who's really, really well educated, obviously, in this topic. She teaches the new religious movements. She talks about how new religious movements and the challenges they face, and the socio-cultural phenomenon that happens when people who are on the outside, they see a gathering of people who have beliefs that are alien to their own, and then they become the target for whatever reason, and how that all kind of evolves. And it's really a specialist topic that she covers really well, and she's written books and lots of articles about various religions from all over the world. She's very well acquainted with new religious movements in the Far East, for example, and now she's coming to the UK. She comes here to our headquarters, and she sees a community that is really thriving. And she also has a very close and old connection to the riser of the family of Muhammad.
SubhanAllah, like the way God works, the fact that she knew him, like she said, about 20 years ago.
Yes.
And it was such a wonderful thing to know that, because this is just God's divine intervention, the way God plans things. You can never tell what's happening next, but he definitely has a very amazing map at his hands, and he's divining what should come next from his own wisdom. So that's why we have to trust him. And the fact that she sat there and she very honestly and in a very vulnerable way just broke down how she felt about what she has observed so far is very beautiful, incredibly genuine. And it's very rare to find people like that in this day and age, and we're so grateful to her.
You can tell she has a wonderful spirit.
Yeah, she really does. And I think that she touched on some really great points. For me, it can be as simple as the fact that there are people who don't like the fact that we have a fence out there. And I don't know if people know this, people watching from outside, but we obviously have a fence. I mean, we have a gate. This is, a building. It
came with the property.
You have to close the door to the house, And there are actually people who take offense to that, have a problem with that. And the fact that we have to explain ourselves and say, hey, we need to close the door because it's not safe if you don't close the door.
Yes.
I mean, it's absolutely
made some very good
ridiculous.
Points,
and she did sit there and she explained that. So that's how far she went in her observation of how things are happening here on the ground for us.
And let's break that down, actually, because you've got... we have a fence around our premises, which is what was there when we bought the place, number one. Number two...
Can you imagine buying a house and there's a door?
Yes.
And people are like, why do you have a door?
Why do you have a door? This is weird. This is cult-like behavior.
You have a door, you must be a cult.
You must be a cult.
What?
Our door... Our gate. It's interesting because we were actually going around the local area, and we were giving hampers to our neighbors as a gesture of goodwill, so that we can reach out and talk to each other if there's ever any issues that go on. We didn't want them to feel shy to come and speak to us. And I remember a lot of the buildings had gates, so they have a gate, and then there's a driveway, and then there's a door. That's exactly what we have.
Compounds kind of thing.
Yeah, there are plenty of houses that are like that. But I think the perception is that these people are hiding something. These people are... And this is where Holly Folks are so good. She said, well, if they're children playing in the yard and there's no gate and there's a busy road adjacent to the building...
Literally right outside.
Literally outside with cars driving, zooming past... then this is a necessity. It's an absolute necessity, and it's not like people are unaware of that fact, that there are children playing, and this would be the same in any other house. But it's things like this that she pointed out so eloquently that demonstrate that there is this prejudice against people who are gathering on a religion or something new that they don't understand. But this is exactly what happened at the time of Jesus Christ when he rose up in Judea with his group of people who were seen as rebels to the religion, who were seen as a cult. And it is the same for every new covenant, because we believe the religion is really the same religion. It's a new covenant that brings in new laws, which is where people have the problem. And I think she spoke really well on demonstrating issues like this.
I think it's very necessary to be having these conversations, and it's important to engage with one another and have this kind of understanding of who we are, where we stand, what impact are we having on the world, and make sure that we're being responsible. Are we making responsible decisions? Are we having responsible perspectives? Are we being helpful to society, or are we being harmful to society?
Yep.
And you don't have to be a large community. You as an individual can have an impact that you're very accountable for. We're living in a very strange world where mainstream religions can have the most horrific ideas that they work by, that they stand by, and yet they are allowed to be released into the world and do as they please because of prejudice, because of bias. We have religions that have within them members who, for example, have no problem with doing horrible things like lynching and arresting and raiding people for their sexual orientation being different. That is something that happens every day around the world, where people will be from the LGBTQ community and members of mainstream religions will attack them, will persecute them based on them being different in that way. And homophobia is a real problem in the world. There are people who will attack one another based on religious beliefs because of racism. And these are mainstream beliefs. These are mainstream scriptures that exist, that are preached in churches, that are preached in masjids, that are openly in the public being spoken about. And people are aware of it. Yet they are not persecuted for it. They are not attacked for it. These religions walk around very happy with existing in society openly, and no one bats an eyelid.
Yep.
We, on the other hand, we sit here and we say that as a people, we want to get together. What is our religion? Our religion is very simple. We want to get together as a people and rally around a man who wants to rise up and say, let's create an alternative to the homophobia and the racism and the intolerance and the horrible things that happen in the world. Let's make a pact with one another that we will not have war, that we will not have racism, that we will have love and peace. Let's work together and make sure no one is hungry and no one is homeless. And let's make it so successful that more people want to join and help support that, so we can make it bigger and better and everyone can be happy. And that's all we want to do. That's literally the seventh covenant, full stop. Now imagine that that is our movement, and there are people who are so offended that we live like this, that they despise the fact that we wear a black beanie, and they come and they mock it and they attack it and they use it in their articles or in their content as one of the reasons that we must be a demonic cult because we wear black beanies. In my opinion, a demonic cult is a movement or a stance that says you should kill someone because their orientation is different from yours, or you should attack someone because their skin color is not the same as yours. That is the definition of demonic. That's the definition of satanic. Not the fact that we say that war is wrong, or the fact that we say that we should live in harmony. What we are doing is a good thing. It really is a good thing. And if someone out there wants to depict that in a negative light, then the negative consequences of what they're doing, it's not just going to hurt the people that they're hurting, it's going to hurt them back at some point. Because what goes around does come around, as you said, Dr. Irfan. It's a karmic law, and we're all connected, whether the world likes it or not. And people don't know that, do they? They don't understand that we are all connected as human beings. And when you hurt someone, you are hurting yourself. And you're going to see that at some point.
Yes. You shall sow as you reap. And the people who are hoarding vast quantities of wealth, the people who are building these underground bunkers, I'm talking about the billionaires in the world. There's a fascinating...
The ultra-rich, right?
The ultra-rich. There's a fascinating documentary that shows that people are preparing and bracing themselves for what's to come. These people have insiders, they have their ears to the ground, and they're hearing these very, very real rumors that there could be a breakout of World War III, and they are investing a lot of money to build themselves in mountains these bunkers where they can survive with enough supplies for the nuclear waste to clear. There are people in the United States, people in Europe who have secured these places for themselves, but they think that they can get away because they have this belief that they are not connected. They are connected, and we are, all of creation is connected, and they will therefore not be able to hide. And how can anyone hide from God? There are so many examples where when the judgment of God comes, it comes very soon.
You reminded me of that incident in the Holy Quran where the son of Noah says to Noah, I'm going to take refuge on a mountain from the wrath of God. And these mountain bunkers, I don't think they're going to be any much stronger than what Noah's son was hoping to achieve. And it didn't work very well for him.
Yeah.
So yeah, it doesn't work like that.
The people of Saleh, they used to be hewers into mountains.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
And there's God has, look, we can't outsmart God. The only thing we can do is obey God and trust in God, because He is the only one who is worthy of our trust. The question is can we escape what has been written for us through karmic law? And it's an absolutely impossible proposition. You cannot avoid that which is coming for you. So if you are someone who brutally persecuted and oppressed people, you will face the consequences of that sooner rather than later. And at the end of it all, even if you do manage to get to the end of your life, there is we know the Abu Sadiq has taught us that reincarnation is an absolute reality, and you will incarnate as something that will then endure that which you inflicted on others.
Absolutely.
So there's no hiding away from your deeds. Your deeds really do define who you become in the future.
Yeah. You can be a persecutor of people, you can be an oppressor of people, a tyrant, and you can think that you're doing a great job, and you can think that you're walking in the lands free and God is not recording what you're doing. But the fact is that know who you're attacking. I think this is a very important thing for us.
Yes.
This is why we sit here and we talk. You can do as you please, but you should know that you're basically attacking a people that are peaceful, that are harmonious, that are hoping to create a better world together, that are tolerant, that are progressive, and you're basically essentially aiding very dangerous and difficult fundamentalists out there who are getting stronger because you're attacking peaceful people. So you're basically strengthening other entities that are much more aggressive, that are hostile, and that are dangerous to you and your society. So think about what you're doing when you do it. Think about who it is that you're attacking and how you're going to look in a few years' time when everything becomes much more clear and you are on that side of the fence thinking to yourself, uh-oh, I'm one of those people who spoke badly about those people who are actually very, very liked now by the world. What shall I do? It'll be too late.
No, one of the most amazing things I learned in this dawah aliyah, amongst many, many things, but this really was a game changer in the way that I perceive what's going on. And this was the story of the Prophet Lot. You know, Lut alayhi salam, we learned that the destruction of the people was because of their practicing something that was deemed a perversion, homosexuality in particular. This is something that I think all the Abrahamic religions kind of have an agreement upon, especially emphasized in Islam. And
this is what they believe.
This is what they believe. They believe that the people were destroyed in a very graphic manner. It's described how they faced the destruction that they did, and the highest point became the lowest point, and it is a sign for the people to reflect. But really what they forget is that and what was revealed by the riser of the family of Muhammad, that it wasn't for the practice of homosexuality, because if that was the case, then there are a lot of places in the world where you could argue they outdid Sodom and Gomorrah, right? Even now we can all think of places in the world that exist where there are large communities of homosexuals living. But Abu Sadiq said it was actually because of what they did to the Caliph of God. They threatened him, they went to his house, they abused and mocked him, and that was the reason for the coming of the judgment of God, where the entire city that was at the very zenith of human civilization in that time, literally and metaphorically, was put to an end very, very swiftly. And it was because they attacked and mocked God's messenger.
Exactly. And you know, I have to say, religions that cannot even agree with one another, in the sense that you have one religion that has in it countless denominations and sects, and everyone is disagreeing on the most fundamental aspects of their own religion. If a religion is so concerned with these little differences that it has, that it breaks into groups, then it should not take so much pride in assuming that it knows how God perceives a group of people that are different, or how God would judge or deal with people who are of a different orientation, for example. that is extremely arrogant and extremely judgmental. And Abu Sadiq has made it very clear that God has created different kinds of people, and that they exist, and there is nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And that we're all human beings at the end of the day, and that God invites each and every person to the banquet table and into his kingdom with love, with peace, with mercy, and with reverence of their sanctity, and honoring who they are as human beings, with their human dignity given to them as they deserve. So you have these groups that say, hey, you know what, we should hate on these people because their race is different, or their orientation is different, or their gender is different, or whatever it might be. And it's so ridiculous to me that they can unite on this hatred, but they can't even unite on understanding, for example, what the spirit is, or how to pray, or what the dress code should be. You can't even find these groups agreeing on the most simple parts of their religion, but they will agree that we should hate other human beings. And I think that is absolutely despicable, and we as a people do not comply with that at all, or align with that at all. And I think it's important, like as you said, history is skewed. People skew the perspectives in order to justify their hatred and their vitriol against other people, and it's really, really shameful.
Yeah, it is. And I think the story of the prodigal son demonstrates God's mercy, that even if you are somebody who has committed all kinds of crimes against yourself, because you can't really harm God in any way, a sin is basically a crime against your own self that you have done. Even then, God waits with open arms, waiting for you to return. And that story where the prodigal son returns in the Gospels, and the father is elated to the point where the obedient son is like, oh my God, he's done everything wrong and you're giving him all this love. And it just goes to show that one sheep that goes away, that returns, brings so much joy to God. And this is something that we've seen over and over again with Abu Sadiq, that he is calling on all of those people. He says, I came for the person who is struggling in this way, or who is committing sin X or sin Y, because these are the people who I was sent for. These are the people who are the prodigal sons in this time, and I want them to come back home. God is full of mercy, God is full of grace, and his vicegerent, he reflects those names of God better than anyone else. And Abu Sadiq has proven with his sermons, with his writings, that he is calling on these people who are plunged into the life of sin. They are pushed or forced into it because of the society that they live in order to survive, in order to eat and drink, that God has forgiven all of their sins and for them to come back home. So we have people from all backgrounds, all religions, all countries that have gathered here under the common belief that there is only one God, and God is known through his messenger, and his messenger changes in every day and age, and there is always a messenger, and in this day and age that messenger is the riser of the family of Muhammad, the Qa'im Aba as-Sadiq, Abdullah Hashim.
Yes, and what would we do without him?
Yes.
And on that note, let's go on to the episode that we were going to discuss today, and we're going to be talking about one of the episodes on School of Divine Mysteries. You can see the entire playlist on the Mahdi Has Appeared YouTube channel. Without further ado, let's go ahead to the first segment.
So today we're going to talk about a really interesting topic, and that is the topic of angels and demons. Angels and demons are a mystery. They're a topic that has always been a fascination that mankind has had. The adherents of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam in particular have always been fascinated with this topic, and other religions as well, and people that follow New Age movements, or even they are interested in the extraterrestrial or UFO phenomenon. They have made connections between these stories and phenomenon that were described in the ancient books, and between the things that they are seeing today moving in the skies. So let's go over this topic together today and explore it. We know that in the Quran, in the Bible, and also in the Old Testament, there are these tales of these beings. We'll start with angels first. And these angels, as described in the holy texts, are beings that have particular jobs, and they are good beings. They work on behalf of God to carry out particular duties or functions. For example, you have the archangel Gabriel, who is playing a particular role throughout the three religions, and that role is basically delivering the inspiration or delivering the message from God to the messenger. And so in Islam in particular, that is Gabriel's function. It's his job. Each one of the angels has a job that they are given the task or the duty of. So you have in Islam this phrase always appearing, which is the angel who is entrusted with, and it basically means that this angel, after you know his name, the next thing that you should know is what it is that he does or she does, perhaps. Let's talk about that. And that's the other aspect, which is whether or not angels are male and female or the exclusively male. But before we get into that, let's continue with the various angels, the most famous angels and their particular duties. You have another angel that appears in the Jewish literature as well as in the Quran and in Christianity, and that is the angel by the name of Michael.
Yes.
And Michael serves as kind of like a patron angel who guards the Israelites and is a person who, or an angel that has been known to be on the side of man or be a defender of man, according to some ancient literature. He's also the angel that is tasked with bringing down the rain, and making the plants grow according to some sources. You have the angel Azrael or Azrael, who is known as the angel of death, and he has the duty or the function of taking the souls out of the people at the time of death and basically turning over those souls to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You have another angel by the name of Israfil, and people often associate him with the archangel Raphael, and his primary function, according to literature, especially Islamic literature, is that he will blow in the horn at the end times. Like he's the one that blows the trumpet. You know how you have some images of an angel and he's holding a trumpet and he's kind of announcing the final hour or the end times. Israfil is that angel in Islam that blows the trumpet, and by the blowing of the trumpet, the entire world of creation, according to many of the narrations, collapses and becomes destroyed. You have lesser known angels that appear in some of the narrations or some of the literature. For example, Sata'il is the name of an angel who is the angel that has the task of bringing down the punishment or a torment upon a disbelieving people. And he makes an appearance in some narrations where there would be a prophet or a messenger that is about to get killed or skinned alive or murdered by their people, and then Sata'il will come down and will offer that prophet, if he wants to, he will say that God sent me in order that I give you the choice whether or not you want me to destroy these people or not. So that's his task. His task is to bring down the torment or the punishment. But we also know that there is an angel or a jinn that was in the form of an angel or used to be an angel or at the rank of an angel that was brought down from that rank, and his name was Azazil, right?
Yes.
And the reason for that is because he used to be close to a God, but then he disobeyed at one point. And so when we look at these names, for example, we'll find that each and every one of them ends with Il, and it ends with Il because it is a reference to, or El in English, a reference to the God of the Old Testament, which his name was Il, right?
Yes.
Or El, who is the father of the gods, or also known as Yahweh or associated with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah.
These angels, each and every one of their names, like it's a combination. So you have Azazil is Azizullah, right? Or the deer of El, or the deer of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You have Jibra'il is Jabarut Allah. So the names are always two parts that are two words that are brought together in order to kind of reflect an aspect or a power or an attribute or a characteristic of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these angels are kind of made out of the different names or characteristics of God. They're imbued with differing powers. They have differing tasks. And they also have different amounts or different numbers of wings according to their rank with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So some of the narrations have mentioned that the higher angels, or the more names of God that they embody, or the more that they know God, right? Because they're in different ranks. They have angels that are archangels that are really close to God. You might have angels that are seraphim. You might have angels that are cherubim. Depending on the rank in which they fall into is the number of wings that they have. And so each wing would be, for example, according to some narrations, an additional name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that they came to know. And so we know, for example, in Islam that God has 99 names. In actuality, Muslims know that the number of names of God are as infinite as He Himself, right? Because He has no beginning and no end. And so He has all kinds of names, and His names never end. And you can constantly discover new things about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you would never reach full knowledge of Him because He is infinite while we are finite. And so the angels, for as many names that they come to know of God, that would be the number of wings that they have. So if God was known by an angel in all of His 99 names that are famous and known by mankind, then that angel would have 99 wings, for example, according to that particular narration.
Oh. That's very interesting.
It is.
It's interesting how the names correspond to their function with God and what quality they're reflecting, and also the fact that there's this correlation between the number of wings and the names that they've come to know. And it's also based in the scripture. I mean, it's mentioned, this difference in the number of wings between like the cherubim and the seraphim, for example. So that explains that sort of scriptural mystery as to why that is.
It's an interesting topic,
angels and demons.
Angels and demons.
Yes, that realm that we don't see, but we are all fascinated by it. It's one of those topics where I think a lot of people have an interest in this, and Abu Sadiq is explaining to us now that there is this hidden realm where these forces of good and evil clash to create that kind of yin-yang symbol where you've got the light and the darkness engaged in a constant tussle for the souls of mankind. And it's not just a fantasy, it's very much real. And how some of these angels can take human forms, and likewise some of these demonic entities can take a human form as well and appear on earth as physical beings.
Yes.
This is something that has been the case since the very beginning when Adam walked the earth.
And there are different angels that have different tasks and different commands, and it's very interesting to hear Abu Saik talk about this, because he's now talking about the realm of the unseen. And also fascinatingly, the realm of the seen, but people don't recognize it, they wouldn't know. And there are all these incidents mentioned in scripture of how prophets and messengers would be engaging in a conversation with someone, and then they will suddenly recognize or realize, wait a second, this is actually an angel of the Lord. And then they would fall on their faces in reverence and realize who it is they're speaking to. So angels are they're always making an appearance in the scriptures, and they're very mysterious. They're described in different ways that you wouldn't expect. For example, their description in the Bible is very vivid and very strange. There are different kinds of descriptions that we find, and there is, of course, the stereotypical way of thinking of angels, which is men with wings. And it's just a very interesting topic. So I guess we should continue and see what else it is that Abu Sadiq is going to reveal. We know some of the names, we know some of their deeds and their commands and actions, but let's see what else he says.
Some angels don't have necessarily the name Il at the end of it. We know that in Jewish sources, most of the angels either will end with Il or will end with Ah, like as in Yahweh, right? So they'll end with the A or the Ah to signify the last part of their name being the name of Yahweh instead of the name of Il. And so that happens as well. We also have, like for example, in the name Hananiah, right? That would be one of the names of the angels that would end differently than, for example, Michael or Gabriel or one of these names. We also have in Islamic sources a few angels ending their names being different than the traditional Israfil, Mikael, Azrael. For example, we have an angel that's mentioned in the traditions as being the doorman to paradise or the guardian to paradise. Anybody who enters into paradise through its gates, you'll find that there is an angel who stands there, who guards, who allows the people of paradise to enter and rejects the people of hell, for example, or those who didn't deserve to go into paradise from entering. His name is Ridwan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's a totally different name. So it's not necessarily the case that all of the names of the angels will be in that particular form, one form or another, or have God or one of the names of God as a secondary part to the name. Not all of the angels as well work by their own selves. And so this is also clear from some of the narrations. So for example, you'll have Azrael being in charge of collecting the souls at the time of death. But because there's so many people that are dying and he's in charge of all of creation, he'll have a staff, a group of angels, a legion of angels that are subservient to him, that he commands. He's the overlord of, and he gives them also the task of going forth and collecting the different souls. And he kind of manages or oversees the process of that matter or that event.
So there's like a hierarchy and almost like a society going on within the angelic realm.
Oh, absolutely. There's a hierarchy in the society, and there's angels that the others have to obey. And so this idea that the higher ones are in charge of legions, this is something which is recognized and has been spoken about a lot. And we know that there are many traditions that state that, for example, Azrael, before he fell down, the angels used to all obey him, and they used to admire him, and they used to wish that they were like him. Even Michael and Gabriel used to look up to him, according to one narration, and wish that they were like him. And we know that basically there's this idea that everything that is happening in the universe above and here on earth below, there's nothing that's taking place except that it is kind of being micromanaged by angels. So when we imagine angels, let me start there. When we imagine angels, we imagine what? What is the first thing that you think of when I say the word angel?
I mean, I think we've seen a lot of artistic depictions, right? So we think of a human being with angel wings. Yeah, that's what I think of.
Exactly. And I think that the reason why we think of human beings with angel wings is because there are so many stories about the angels interacting with mankind on a physical level and appearing to mankind in the image of man. And we have a verse from the Holy Quran that makes this a stipulation. you know? And it basically says that if we were to bring down angels, we would have made them in the image of men, and we would have made them wear what the people wear. Right?
Okay.
So the Quran says that if we were going to bring down angels, because the people, the disbelievers were always debating with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they were asking him to show them the angels that that he was speaking about. And the Quran comes out with the response that, okay, but if we were to bring down the angels, we would have brought them down in the form or the image of men, and they would have wore plain clothing. So how are you going to recognize them anyway, right? This is the type of question that is posing, or the response that's given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran. And it's obviously a reference to the many stories that exist within Christianity and Islam of the interactions that took place between the angels and the people, or the human beings. Like, for example, you have the story of Gideon. And Gideon, when he was approached by an angel, the angel came to him in the image of a human being, a man. You have the story of Balaam ibn Ba'ura, when he was riding his donkey and he was going forward to curse Moses. You have the angel blocking the pathway, and he came in the form of a man. You have the individuals, the three angels that came down to Abraham, and then they went to Lot. They also appeared in the image of man. In the traditions or the narrations of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, Gabriel would often appear in the image of one of the companions whose name was Dahya. You have in the narrations of Muhammad and the family of Muhammad, Gabriel appearing in the image of Abu Khattab, one of the companions of Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salam. And so the angels were consistently and constantly appearing in the image of men. Even when Gabriel appeared to Mary, what happens? She becomes frightened, right? And she tells him to not approach her if he is taqiyya. And it is later explained in Al-Haft Sharif that taqiyya was the name of a man who lived in her, in that region or in that area. And she thought that Gabriel was this man named taqiyya. And that's why she said to him, do not approach me if you are taqiyya.
Wow. I mean, yeah, you're right. Absolutely. All these stories, it's like they're undercover. They're angels of God undercover in the form of human beings. And that's the test of faith. The people, it wasn't so obvious. They weren't these human beings wearing wings. They were just appearing as normal human beings.
So we learn from there that the angels can shapeshift. They can take on the form of man. That's one of their characteristics, one of their abilities, and certainly that's why they are depicted as beings that are resembling men that have wings to signify that they're not human beings fully. They're angels, right, that fly in the heavens because birds fly in the sky, and they appear in the form of men because they can shapeshift, and that's so long as scripture has been available amongst mankind and these stories have been there. They have always depicted angels as coming and interacting with human beings in the form of man.
It's interesting how, as we said earlier as well, angels come in the form of people, and there are different parts of scripture that show that. And the story of Mary is used as an example where she sees someone and she doesn't recognize him to be an angel, right? She thinks it's someone from the town. And then they say, no, actually I'm an angel of the Lord. And then she knows, okay, this is actually someone God has sent as a messenger. And angel actually does mean messenger. So they are messengers or apostles to the people, and they come in the form of human beings. And as it says in the Quran, if we were to send to them a messenger, it would be in the form of a human being.
Yeah, so that really is the key distinction, isn't it? That people have this idea, like Sister Tiffany said, those artistic depictions where angels are coming in this glory of light, and they have wings that fill the horizons, and they're landing on planet Earth, and then they engage and interact with human beings. That's not the way it works. It is, they take a human veil, they take a human mask, and then they interact with the people in keeping with this ayah of the Quran that you just recited. And then coming back to the story of Mary, where in the Quran, Maryam, peace be upon her, is approached by Gabriel in the form of a man, and Abu Sadiq reveals that the name or title Taqiyya that she uses is actually the name of somebody who he resembled in that time, in the time when Mary was on earth, and it's because she mistook him for this individual, and it was actually Gabriel who was present there speaking to her as a man, giving her the glad tidings of the coming of the Messiah. And there are many other examples, aren't there, in Al-Haft al-Sharif, which is a Shia apocryphal text, one of the greatest books ever written, and in it Imam al-Sadiq encounters Abu al-Khattab, and he reveals to Mufaddal that, do you know who this is? And he said, this is verily Gabriel again, making an appearance as a man. Yes.
Wow.
And these angels have this ability to do so, and if the angels have the ability to do so, then you can extend the argument to say, well, there are also things that happened in Islamic history, for example, where you have the forces of darkness and the fallen angels also appearing as individuals and men. The first example that pops into my mind is the appearance of Iblis as the old man with a callus on his forehead, who is the first to give allegiance to Abu Bakr. This was his entire focus, to get the divine succession broken in the hearts and minds of the people, and to encourage that to happen, he appeared in the form of an old man and he said, I pledge allegiance to Abu Bakr, and then a train of people followed down that line, unfortunately, and of course the rest is history.
A trailblazer towards hellfire.
Exactly.
Let's go on to the next segment and see how it continues.
We have, though, other depictions of these angels in their true form. We have narrations from the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ as having asked Gabriel to appear to him at some point in his true form. And when Gabriel appeared to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in his true form, the Prophet fainted or almost fainted from the terror of what it was that he saw. It was something that was so foreign to his expectations or to anything that he's ever seen before. The descriptions mentioned the angel or Gabriel having hundreds of wings that were was all over its body. Other Jewish narrations depict the angels as having a more round form, of being like wheels or resembling wheels, like in the vision of Ezekiel, and that the wheels or the chariot of fire would have eyes all over it, or wings all over it. And so it is recognized in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam that even though they take on the form or the image of mankind, that is not their original image, and that their original image is extremely terrifying, and that mankind can't really handle that.
Yes. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
They also are not always pretty. Some angels are extremely ugly, even in their appearances that they make or with mankind. So you have instances or narrations where, for example, the angel of death will come to the believer in a very beautiful form, and will kind of exude this energy of calmness and peace and beauty, right? Mm-hmm. Or will appear to him in the image of a beautiful young man or a beautiful, calm old man. But for the non-believer, the angel of death will appear to him in the most horrific and scary of forms. So the angels, they reflect also the attitude or the stance that God has towards that person. They act as mirrors also to the individuals. If they're evil individuals that are bad, they will more often appear to them in a bad form. Even the narrations that speak about the angels that will question mankind after death, right? They mention that those questioners at the time of death will appear to the individual who's deceased in a scary form, if he's somebody who's going to go to hellfire, or in a beautiful form, if it's somebody who's going to go to heaven.
Wow. I mean, that's a little bit terrifying, to be honest, to think about how scary that must be for the disbeliever, and also how comforting it must be for the believer. I mean, but it makes sense. It makes sense that if they have this shape-shifting nature, that of course that would be reflected.
So we have the angels also appearing in different sizes in the narrations. Some of the narrations have mentioned that the angels appear in a gigantic form or a gigantic size. There was one time where the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was sitting with Gabriel, and they were speaking with one another, and then all of a sudden their eyes are catching something in the heavens, and Gabriel seems terrified. And when the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ asks him what is wrong, he says that Israfil or Raphael is descending right now from the heavens, and he's never done this before, nor will he ever do it again until the day that the final hour comes, or the end of creation comes. And so they looked and they beheld an angel who was so vast and so huge that he blocked out, him and his wings blocked out the entire sky. No matter what direction the Prophet or Gabriel looked in, all they could see is Israfil and the heavens above. And so you have them appearing in a very gigantic form. You also have Gnostic scriptures and texts describing the angels appearing in the heavens as these glowing orbs that are the same size as the stars that are up above. And so they can appear as a glowing, moving orb or star that's in the heaven above. And that's very big, obviously, very large. They can appear in the same size as mankind. And then you have this theme, this group of narrations that describe the angels as appearing on a kind of micro scale, a quantum angel scale, right? Like a very small, teeny tiny angel that is existing, that's performing particular functions. And for example, you have one narration that says that there's not a single plant from the harmala plants that is, or from the harmala seeds that is planted, except that God appoints an angel over that seed, and appoints an angel over each one of its leaves, and appoints an angel over each one of the seeds from the new plant that is generated. And so you have this very small plant that has on it a whole collection of angels. You have another narration that states that every time that it rains, every single drop of rain has a particular angel that is accompanying that rain, that has the task of delivering that drop of rain to the exact spot in which it is supposed to fall down in.
Wow.
And so obviously it's going to be an angel that is appropriate for the size of the raindrop that is falling down. And if anybody was unsure about the fact that these little micro teeny tiny angels exist, we have a narration in which Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam and Imam al-Baqir are explaining the cause behind and the reason and how the lightning and thunder take place. And so they state that the reason why the clouds move is because there is a particular angel that drags the clouds forward, right? And so the movement of the clouds, the bringing down of the rain, the growth of the plant, each and every one of these things that appear to be happening naturally have many angels that are involved in these acts of nature. So the narration states that there's an angel that basically drags the cloud, and that he has kind of like a drumstick of fire, and he will beat the cloud and cause the lightning to come forward. And then the narration states, and as far as the thunder goes, the sound of the thunder in which we hear, it originates from a teeny tiny angel that is bigger than the size of a fly and smaller than a wasp. And that the sound that we hear of the thunder is actually the voice of that angel. And he's praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills, or if the angel wants to, it can strike the lightning at a particular individual, and that it's not random, but rather it's a punishment that's coming down upon this individual for a particular reason.
Wow.
So that's really interesting. Looks like all the laws of nature and physics are very planned out by God according to the narrations, and they have to do with divine commandments sent by Him to these entities that then carry out His commands.
Yeah, like angels, if you had to define them, you would say they're divine intermediaries. They carry out the will of God in the creation as told by God. Exactly. They are the executors or the executors of God's will on earth, and you can see how involved they are, how they, even the lightning, the rain, all these different things, the movement of the planetary bodies, these are all governed by legions of angels, so many that we can't count them. The Prophet Muhammad in a famous narration said that there is not a hand's width in the heavens that is not occupied by angels. So they are those people, they're those beings rather, that are commanded and tasked with carrying out God's will in creation. And on the flip side, you have these cancerous tumors, which are Iblis and his legion of demons, who are there to oppose divine will. And the cure to these demons has now come in the form of the riser of the family of Muhammad. Or I love what the Indian tradition refers to him as the Kalki, the destroyer of darkness.
Destroyer of darkness.
Or the killer of tumors, either way.
Very medical description of the Mahdi, but that's exactly what he is. And the episode is very fascinating. There are those who are interested in the esoteric and in the Gnostic and the unseen. I think this episode is right up their alley if they're interested in that. And we have about 2 segments left of the episode, so I guess we can sign off here and play the segments. Thank you for tuning in this morning with Rise Up, or to Rise Up. And we'll see you again tomorrow for another episode.
Yep, we'll be back again tomorrow morning.
We'll be back again tomorrow morning. Go ahead and enjoy.
Reporting for duty.
Yes. Enjoy the rest of the episode. Thank you for tuning in. And Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
We have other narrations that state that there are thousands of angels. One narration says 70,000 angels that basically chain up the sun, and they drag it across the sun on a day-to-day basis to move the sun from the point in which it rises to the point in which it sets. You have other narrations that mention that there is an angel that sits in the earth, and he basically has control of all of these different strings. And whenever it's time for an earthquake to happen, or whenever he pulls one of these strings, he causes the tectonic plates to shift and the earth to shift, and an earthquake takes place. You have angels that are in charge of, and they abide in the rivers, and they make sure that the rivers are flowing in the correct direction. And for that reason, you have narrations in which the Ahl Bayt alayhi salam warn people to not go inside of a river or a lake while they're naked, and to not basically urinate in the waters, the fresh waters, because there are angels that might get upset or might get offended by this particular action. There's also narrations that state that a person should not sleep naked on the top of his roof, or because he might offend the angels that are in the skies that are moving above him, or that are moving the clouds, or that are moving the different celestial stars, or the moon, or the sun up above. And so what we can gather from these narrations is that the angels are appearing in human form and in our size, and they're appearing in a gigantic, massive form, and they're also existing in very small forms. There are these little quantum super small angels that are between the size of a fly and besides the size of a wasp, that are making tremendous sounds, and that they're responsible for all aspects of life and every movement that's happening on the face of the earth, and that's quite incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it's mind-blowing. We always think of all of these things like the patterns of weather and all of these things as just natural processes, as you said. But there's actually nothing that's happening by accident. It's all happening in a very carefully planned way. And it's actually all by the command of God. That's really interesting. That's really interesting.
And the same thing goes on the demonic side. The demonic side, or the shaitanic side, or the jinn side, it is the exact same as it is for the angels.
Okay.
Except it's for the bad side.
Okay.
You have these narrations that state basically that the angels and the jinn were working kind of on the same team, and that actually they were indistinguishable from one another. And for that reason, you have in Christian and Judeo sources, the devils are nothing more than fallen angels. Angels that ended up going the dark path or rebelling against God. You have specifically, Muslims in general, they think that the only angel that rebelled was Iblis, and that he wasn't an angel, he was a jinn. And that the jinn are the ones that are against God, and that an angel has no ability to rebel against God. But I think in the book al-Kitab, which we've referenced on several occasions, it makes it very clear that when Iblis had rebelled in the very beginning, that he actually rebelled and he took with him a large group of angels and other beings or creatures, if you want to call them jinn, that were convinced to rebel with him against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so you have this notion or this idea that the angels, they were shocked when Azazel fell. When Iblis fell, they considered him to be one of them, and that before he fell, he had a particular duty, a job. Him and all those who rebelled with him, they had particular duties just like the angels did. And when they rebelled, they kind of continued to maintain or keep those properties or those special powers until the final hour, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala judges between mankind and basically causes the end of Satan and his party or his companions. So now they're utilizing their powers for evil, to whisper to mankind. And you have the stories of the appearances or the apparitions of these demons in the same way as the angels are appearing for mankind. You have it written in scripture that and in narrations and traditions, that the jinn or the shaitans, when they would appear visibly amongst mankind, that they would appear in a human form. And for that reason, you have many stories and traditions where, for example, Iblis will appear as an old man to pledge allegiance to Abu Bakr at the time of the Bay'ah. You have other instances where Iblis, for example, will appear as a man to the brothers of Joseph as they were contemplating throwing him into the well. And the narrations like this are many, where the shaitan, for example, in order to annoy Zulkifl, one of the prophets, and to agitate him, he would continuously go to his house and knock on his door. You also have narrations that state that, especially in the end times, in the time of the Qa'im, that Iblis and his companions would be walking down the streets and in the marketplace as human beings. And so that's an interesting thing to know or to point out. You also have traditions that mention the jinn appearing in their natural form. And human beings seeing these shayateen in their natural form. And the narrations would describe many of the jinn as being horrific, as having half man, half animal bodies. Usually the traditions described the shayateen or the jinn as having the lower half of their body being the body of a goat, or some sort of animal that is like that, a sheep or a goat or a horse or something like that.
Pan.
Yeah, like a pan type creature. And that's why you get a lot of these, images in ancient Greece and then some of the ancient cultures where you have these hybrid beings. So it's like an entity that's trying to shapeshift into a human form, but he's unable to take on a pure human form. There still is part of him that is not human. In fact, they are able to, according to some of the narrations, to breed with mankind. They can crossbreed with mankind and give offspring. Some of the narrations mentioned that one of the offspring of the jinn was the Queen of Sheba. And even the Jewish traditions state that when she arrived to Solomon after traveling to him, that Solomon had this basically floor of his palace in a particular area that was so clear that it was reflective, and it looked as if you were walking on water, but actually it was a solid surface. And so when she was getting ready to walk over towards Solomon, Solomon positioned himself in such a place that she would have to cross over this particular floor. And when he glanced over at the reflection of her feet, through the surface, the floor surface, he saw that she didn't have the feet of a normal woman. They were hairy feet, and they were feet that resembled the feet of a goat or an animal as such. So he knew that she was not the offspring of mankind, but the offspring of one of these jinn. And so whether or not this story is true, it doesn't matter. Like, we're not talking specifically about that right now, but rather we just want to point out that what the narrations have said about these particular entities. You also have stories that have mentioned that there are particular jinn that are extremely powerful, and they describe them as being extremely large in size. The Quran itself describes them as having the ability to dive into the waters, they have the ability to build large structures, and that they were used by Solomon as such, so they're able to manipulate our physical reality. They're not just spirits that have no authority or ability to fix or build or destroy something. The narrations state that they have the ability to go into people and to possess them, and they have a world that's parallel to our world. They're also known for having the ability to kidnap people and take them into their world, sometimes to be brought back, sometimes to never be brought back again.
Wow.
And for that reason, you have this connection that's drawn between the jinn and between the
extraterrestrials.
Extraterrestrials.
Right? Wow, that's really interesting.
You have also these narrations that describe the shayateen also as being very small in size, just like the angels. You have many narrations and traditions that state that under every single hair of a human being will be one of these shayateen, or underneath each and every one of the mustache hairs of a person who does not clean his mustache or clean his beard, you will find one of these shayateen that are residing under there. You have narrations that describe sicknesses as coming from the devils themselves, and kind of really describing what we would describe in modern day terms as germs, describing the germs as being shayateen, or the bacteria or the viruses as being shayateen, or from that world of the shayateen. And so they come in very small size. We have them also appearing in some sources, some Islamic traditions, as living or taking small pebbles or precious stones as homes that they can reside in. There are also narrations that state that they would reside in cats or dogs, and in particular black cats or black dogs, or in serpents. And so we know that they come in all shapes and sizes, from the small to the very large. And we also know that they have particular functions and missions, just like the angels do. Iblis commands a host of demons and devils, so that each and every one of them has a particular function to mislead people astray in particular ways. There's, for example, a shaitan that's in charge of making people make mistakes while they're in a drunken state, or make them lust after drinking, or become addicted to alcohol. You have other angels, or other jinn or shayateen that are in charge of musical instruments, or other jinn and shayateen that are in charge specifically of causing marital disputes and separating between a man and a wife. You have other jinn or shayateen that basically are in charge of finding treasures, or in charge of giving an individual information about the future or the past or the present. You have ones that spy on the heavens above. And so each and every one of them has a particular function. And then you have the sciences that are developed, which is called essentially magic, that Solomon used to be well versed in, and many of the ancient prophets, messengers, saints, sages, they used to know a lot about. And Imam Ahmad al-Hassan, he said that one of the most famous magicians was Abraham alayhi salam. He knew a lot about magic, and magic in general is not haram to learn about it. It's just haram to utilize it in a negative way, or a way that would harm another human being. And the core of a particular type of magic, right, which is the real essence of it, is this art of being able to summon the angels and the demons in order to carry out your bidding, or to imbue you with particular qualities or traits. You have in Kabbalah this system whereby there's this hierarchy of 72 angels and 72 demons. And each and every one of them have gifts that if you make sacrifices to, or you make particular deals to, or you're able to summon them and force them in a particular way, they will teach you wisdom, for example, or let you know secrets, or give you information about particular individuals, or they will give you political powers, or they will do many different things.
Okay. I mean, that really makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense in the sense that we're familiar with this concept of making a deal with the dark side, making a deal with the devil, and through that you can get powers, or you can get certain positions. So this makes sense. And it makes sense on the other side, where it's basically a divine knowledge which enables a person to practice magic in the highest degree.
So basically, Tiffany, this topic is so big, it's so vast, that you could go on in it forever. And there are people that spent their entire lives dedicated to gathering the names and the titles and the ranks and experimenting with summoning these differing positive and negative forces, and writing everything that they could and can about their conversations with these entities and the powers that they were dealing with. In terms of whether or not the angels are male or female, the Quran seems to indicate that they're not females, and there seems to be an instance where God takes offense, so to speak, at the very notion that the Arabs at that time were portraying the angels as being females and correcting them to note that the angels were in fact male. Other traditions indicate the opposite in regards to that. And that's something, inshallah, that if the people are interested in, that we can go into in greater detail.